vagina?
God damn it, Josh. Every time.
Well, it's because you had to comment on it. I wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Well, welcome to the bonus content of Two and Change, where we apparently have to listen to a whale's vagina, otherwise known as Josh.
Nice turnaround.
Isn't that great?
There we go. Anyway, so we were just sitting around talking about, I don't know, the provincial election. And, so I know we actually have about a good, 30% of our listeners actually come from the U.S. and other places. So maybe we'll just give a quick, run over of,
there's this province in Canada called Ontario.
Canada is a country. It's its own country.
It's northwest of Iowa, and for those who don't know where Iowa is, because no one does.
Fuck off. We have a strong contingent from Iowa.
And by the way, it's northeast of Iowa.
Hi, Matt.
Not northwest.
So we have provinces instead of states. So Ontario you could consider as kind of like a state.
So our governor,
except premier, whatever.
And our folks here our premier has a little bit more power in certain things, like for example, healthcare
or everything,
or education.
So
we're getting a new one.
Bottom line, we have
three parties, not two.
Exactly.
Yes.
Bottom line is we
Four
have
if you count the Greens.
we have-
but nobody's
Five
counting.
if you count the Marxist-Leninists,
bottom line we have three people.
which Mike does.
I do not.
They get equal time.
We have three parties with the leader. One's they're all incompetent, but they're all different layers of competent. One is
Oh God, yes.
one is just out in left field and just power. I don't know. One is
We talking about Singh there?
no. Oh no, that's federal.
Oh, my
No, we're
bad.
talking
about
provincial.
and then
Horwath, yes.
yeah, and then we've got one who's basically sort of corrupt, and then we've got one that's really
Sort of.
corrupt. Yeah.
They've had staff criminally charged and convicted this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But then this is where I run into the thing. So
and then we have
I-
Donald Trump Jr. running.
I
Basically,
have to vote for Rob Ford's brother,
Yes.
or the criminal, or the person who chose her hill to die on being lower car insurance rates for Toronto.
But there
where
is
the
your-
fuck? What do I do?
There's
Feel
your
free.
first mistake. You're talking about voting for one of the leaders. We don't vote directly for the
but
premier
the
in
leader
Canada.
sets the
Just
leader
like we-
sets the policy.
We don't
The
vote
leader
for a
sets the
governor.
policy.
yeah, but I'm basically forced to vote for the leader because all my local choices are shit.
The leader sets the policy for the party. The party that is in power sets what's going to happen. So how can I not be voting for a leader?
Stand by. The leader sets the policy in a majority government, but not necessarily
In a minority
government.
Except the problem is that so we had a liberal minority government, and we did quite. The last government we had before our current one was a liberal minority government.
It was. Yeah.
Horwath decided to
Pull the
not
plug on
support, decided to pull the plug to get what, like 1-2 MPPs?
Yep.
No,
And-
the same amount, was it not?
Yeah. I
Same
think
amount.
she
And
they
why
actually
does she
not
still
lose
have
two
a
and gain
job?
two?
Oh, but-
She had the Trump card she had the Trump card where she could actually make a freaking difference, but instead she chose the weirdest hill to die on.
She
Like, what the hell?
played that Trump card over car insurance rates and handed
yeah,
a majority government
yeah.
to Kathleen Wynne.
Well,
Yeah.
because part of the problem, and this is Andrea Horwath, this is Kathleen Wynne, this is Doug Ford too, the leaders of the three parties who could potentially form a government in this province play to Toronto.
Yeah, they do.
They
do.
don't. The rest of the province is by and large ignored, and this is a vast province.
It is.
Yeah.
From Thunder Bay to New Liskeard to London
Windsor,
to Kingston,
yeah.
like there's
Yeah, we've got like what, 11,000 square kilometers? I don't even know.
We are we geographically the largest province, or is that Quebec?
Quebec.
Quebec is
Quebec. But
second
then
one.
again, well, as with Ontario, most of Quebec is unexplored wilderness.
Oh, it shows though, like
It doesn't even show up in Google Maps.
We
most of the
have
time.
7 people who live in Northern Ontario. Come on.
Well, and actually, I do not blame Northern Ontario for wanting to split off because honestly, it is really like.
Well,
we're in
let's be
London.
honest. If we were dividing up the country today, if we were forming a new country and drawing provincial lines on the map, we would not have the provincial lines we have today.
honestly,
No,
Northern
no.
Ontario, Manitoba would be like. The
And
same
why
thing.
does Saskatchewan get to be a rectangle? Because that's bullshit.
They're kind of
Because
like a
they're
stretch-
smart enough not to use daylight savings time.
There.
Touche.
Yes.
Touche.
Let's give them that point. They're allowed. Yeah. Their economy is also not not really shit right now.
No, Saskatchewan.
They're also smart enough to not elect liberal governments.
How about that?
They either elect conservatives or New Democrats.
There.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, I think with Ontario is the part of the problem is that what Ontario wants, and forgive me for saying this, we want inoffensive middle managers who are not going to rock the boat too much left, not going to rock it too much right. So this is why I think, and you're sighing, I'm getting an eyeball. But here's the thing.
I'm sighing in resignation.
We want
wrong.
inoffensive middle managers, and that's what the Liberal Party of Ontario was supposed to be.
We don't want people to get into, forgive the term, social engineering projects.
Yeah.
We want people who are going to fix something about our hydro rates, fix something about the fact that people are struggling to find jobs, and just in general, make it affordable to live here.
All three of which our current government has really badly screwed up.
We get 8% off on our... No, that's fucking... See, here's the
You
problem.
increase the power rates by 25% and then get 8% off. That's a fantastic
But here's the
plan.
thing. Everyone's looking at Kathleen Wynne like she personally came and raped your dog or something. No. What happened is that the decisions that Kathleen Wynne are dealing
When
with
she raped
today,
my dog, it really made me upset.
Yes.
Kathleen Wynne was in cabinet when Dalton McGuinty was premier.
I'm not even talking about
Let's
Dalton
not forget
McGuinty.
that.
I'm
and
talking about...
Yeah, and you can go back. The hydro
I'm talking about
privatization started Mike Harris.
1970s. Yep. I'm talking about 70s and 80s when we frickin' penned the contracts to create these power plants. I've had a few to drink.
Yes, you
so
have.
we created these ridiculous
Listen,
contracts to build these power plants, whether or not they produce any freaking power. This happened in the 70s and 80s.
But they did produce power.
You know what?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about from the 70s and 80s, because if you look at Bruce and Darlington and the other nuclear power plants.
Ridiculously
No, I'm
clean.
talking about like the hydroelectric dams up north that they're starting to build. I'm talking about...
Speaking of Bruce Power, who the public servant makes $3.1 million for a salary?
You know what? I'm okay with that. And this is why I'm okay with this.
$3.1 million?
Yes, I am. You know why?
He delivers.
Because you got to deliver. Absolutely.
And
100%.
they do.
This is someone on very much on the left. You can't pay peanuts and expect to compete with private sector.
If you get,
I'm sorry, but I'm taking Josh's side on this one.
Please do.
Because you look at the comparables in other provinces, which is where we need to be looking. Look at the CEO of Hydro One, forget about the 3.1 for Bruce. The CEO of Hydro One just got a $2 million raise to $6.1 million. So we got a $6 million man doing the same job in Ontario that the guy in Quebec does for $500,000.
Tell me how that's the same delivery mode.
And
My
the
question
Quebec
is what
electricity
is,
system is just as large and complicated as Ontario's is.
My question is that
Arguably
what
more
is
because of New
what
Brunswick
is
stuff.
the private sector comparison in Ontario?
yeah.
You can't have a private
Well,
sector
it's just that you
comparison
can't
when
have
you're
a
talking about a
comparison.
public utility. You've got to compare what the utilities in other provinces are paying.
But the thing is that you can't necessarily, even though that Quebec, about as populous as Ontario, about as complicated for the sector, we have two very different systems when it comes to hydro.
We do.
Yeah, but I will argue.
So
I will
take
argue,
a look at Alberta then, where you've got the Ontario guy is still making before the $2 million raise that put him to $6 million. So when he was only making $4 million, he was still making double what the guy running the system in Alberta, where you're talking about oil sands extraction and everything else that falls under the responsibility of their energy department.
Yeah.
Is making in Alberta.
I will.
My question is, how many
Okay,
people-
no. Let me. I will. You're going to be hard pressed to find a lot of P3s out there who do government work for contract, where their CEOs make that level of money.
My question is that how many people does Hydro One encompass? How many how many large scale projects? How many reactors? The problem is that you're comparing apples to, I don't know.
But you're comparing apples to
No,
oranges.
if you want to go work in the private sector, go work in the private sector. Go find a job in that sector, in the private sector.
Don't work on the
and
public
go for
dime.
it. If you want to work on the public dime, then you're going to accept the salary that's offered. And
But
frankly,
and this is where I get
why
a
is
weird
the guy
conservative
running the
position.
electricity system getting paid more than the premier? Then? We're talking about a provincial election. The
Then
person
maybe
who's
we
going to
should
run
raise
the
premier's
province.
salary.
Yeah.
You're
And
making an assumption that people are doing this job based on based on the money motivation alone. People don't go into the public sector only based on the motivation alone.
This
They do
is
it for the
true,
public
but at
good.
the same time, it's this is where we start talking about, okay, so to make not a very apt comparison, but make a somewhat comparison, because I know I'll get flayed alive if I don't preface my sentence.
You'll notice I've been pretty quiet on this one. I'm conflicted here, so I'm listening to both
So
sides.
we could say, teachers could make a bit more in the private sector, but they take a pay cut to work in the public sector. Yes, they do. Yet teachers are
because
still
there are only
expected
so many jobs in the
this-
private sector for teaching, and the rest of them are in the public
I'm
sector,
saying
and
that
they've got to
in the-
decide which one they want.
in
They've
the
got more
same
job
skill-
security in the public sector.
But the
okay.
same skill set is what I'm talking about.
But what's
So
the
they
limit
trade
to
off
that?
salary for job security. That's the choice that they've made.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Is that you have to look at what this guy is making compared to what a CEO of a company that encompasses this level of responsibility would make.
Okay, no,
No,
no.
we
if
don't,
it's- and
because
if
you
it's
just
too
said
high-
we don't pay the teachers the
Thank
same.
you.
Yep.
So if we don't pay the teachers the same, why should we pay the CEOs the same?
You've just admitted to a job. You just admitted that there's a trade-off from public
I
sector.
admit to nothing. I admit to nothing, sir.
And as far as retaining the talent to do the job, look, you just keep going down the list. Well, you don't want to do it for the salary? Okay, well, we'll interview the next guy, and we'll interview the next guy. If Ontario wants to pay me $500,000 to run the electricity system, I'll happily go in there and start hiring and firing people, because
are
you
you
don't have to be a
qualified,
nuclear
sir?
engineer to
No.
run a government bureaucracy.
No,
you
you
have
don't.
to
Are
be
you
a good
qualified
manager.
to run a nuclear reactor?
Or engineers are terrible bureaucrats.
You don't.
Actually.
You're not hiring somebody to run a nuclear reactor. You're hiring
in a
somebody
way
to
you
manage
are.
the people who run the nuclear reactors.
Well, clearly I'm losing this argument, so we're out of time. I want to thank everyone for coming
Yeah.
here.
Oh, I see how
Sean,
it
thank
is.
you
Wow,
so
and
much.
we didn't even get to vote on the premiere.
We did.
Well, we're also bonus,
mean-
bonus content is about 10 minutes. We're already about 12, so we can
All
have to,
right.
I'm being serious. All right.
All the
I
same.
think we've opened up a really good avenue for a future podcast.
We have.
I think we have,
And I
you
think we need to have Shawn back for that one.
I think we do.
Well,
Anyway,
the election kicks off in a month.
All right.
She's off in a month. Anyway, for Two and Change, I'm Tim.
I'm Mike.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Shawn.
We'll see you next time.